Welcome to Reddit Confessions.
It started with silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that lingers just a second too long after a goodbye. The kind that makes a man pause halfway through a morning coffee and wonder if something was said, or if it was just the weight of everything unspoken. We'd been married 25 years. That number feels mythic now. We'd raised a daughter, buried pets, survived recessions, family feuds, and years of quiet middle-aged disappointment that never quite turned into resentment. Just weariness, familiarity, the dull ache of time. So when she told me she had a conference in Las Vegas, some nursing leadership summit, I didn't question it. She's always been the ambitious one. I nodded, helped zip her suitcase, and even left a travel mug of coffee in her car before she drove off at dawn. A small gesture, a habit, a goodbye. I watched her taillights disappear down our street without thinking twice. And yet, there was a pause in her kiss that morning, a stiffness in her hug. Or maybe I imagined it. It's hard to separate instinct from paranoia when you've been in the same orbit with someone for so long. She didn't text much that weekend, but she rarely does on business trips. I cooked myself simple meals, watched old war movies, and puttered around the garage pretending I still fixed things. Sunday night came. Her plane was delayed. I didn't sleep much. Monday morning, she breezed back into the house like nothing had changed. But it had. I just didn't know it yet. It wasn't a dramatic discovery. No lipstick on a collar, no whispers from a friend, no late-night calls from an unknown number. Just a receipt. I was clearing out the recycling bin on Wednesday, something mundane. But there it was, crumpled and slightly torn, jammed between a wine bottle and a cereal box. A receipt from a chapel in Las Vegas. Ever After Wedding Chapel. 2 names printed in bold beneath the logo. Hers, and a man I'd never heard of. At first, my brain rejected it. Assumed it was some tourist gimmick, maybe a joke souvenir. But the timestamp was right. 2 days before she flew home. During the conference, I flattened the receipt on the kitchen counter. My stomach buzzed, not quite panic, not yet anger. Just a thrum of dissonance, like hearing a song you know in the wrong key. She came home that night and kissed me on the cheek. I kissed her back. Said nothing. I started looking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her in our bed, her breathing slow and even, mine shallow and erratic, like I was trying not to disturb something sacred. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning shadows across the plaster. My hands were cold. My thoughts were worse. She'd married someone else. I didn't know him. His name meant nothing to me. But he had signed that receipt with her. Daniel K. That's all I had. Just a last initial. But it may as well have been a knife. I got up around 3 a.m. and walked barefoot to the office. I didn't turn on the light. Just sat down at the desk where we used to plan vacations and pay bills. I pulled open drawers slowly, methodically, as if I was searching for ghosts. And I found them. A printed itinerary for the trip, not from the conference hotel, but from a boutique Airbnb downtown. A keycard envelope from the Bellagio tucked into the pocket of her carry-on. A photo, half buried under a receipt from some seafood restaurant on the Strip. It had slipped behind the liner of her travel pouch. Maybe she didn't even know it was there. It was small, square, glossy, the kind you get when you pay extra for memories. She was wearing white, not a gown, but something elegant, effortless. He was beside her, tall, broad, smug, his arm around her waist. She was laughing, at the altar of that goddamn chapel. I didn't cry. Not then. My hands shook a little. My jaw clenched. But I didn't cry. I stood there for maybe an hour, the photo in one hand, the Bellagio envelope in the other, my breath shallow like I was waiting for someone to wake me up. Eventually, I slid the photo into a Ziploc bag and placed it inside the locked drawer. I wasn't ready to destroy it. Not yet. Instead, I brewed coffee, silent, mechanical. When she came into the kitchen later that morning, rubbing sleep from her eyes, wearing the same robe she's had for 10 years, I handed her a mug without looking at her. "Thanks, babe," she said, yawning. I nodded. Nothing more. I had a lot to do. I started making lists. Not to-do lists. Not shopping lists. Lists of her belongings. Her jewelry box in the bedroom. 3 bracelets, 1 broken clasp. 4 pairs of earrings. A wedding ring, still worn, still gleaming, still a lie. I went room by room. Her yoga mat in the hallway closet. The signed copy of that romance novel she loved, spine worn from rereading. Perfume bottles, half used, categorized by scent. A dozen sweaters folded in the linen chest, smelling faintly of her skin. It wasn't just an inventory of her things. It was an autopsy of our life. I packed it slowly. Not to throw her out. Not yet. But to prepare. To give her exactly what she wanted: space. I moved with quiet precision. Like someone cleaning up after a flood, touching soaked memories without looking too long at any one of them. Each drawer I emptied felt like disarming a trap. Each hanger I pulled from the closet whispered a different lie. Meanwhile, she floated through our house like nothing was off. She asked me to help fix the printer. She offered to pick up Thai food on her way home from work. She made a joke about how our daughter always leaves dishes in her room, like we're just two middle-aged parents keeping the wheels turning. And I kept smiling, just enough to keep her calm. I'd chosen my strategy. No shouting, no crying, no slamming doors. Just quiet. Precision. Space. She wanted freedom? She'd get it. Just not the way she expected. Her father called that Thursday. He usually doesn't. He's the kind of man who thinks text messages are sufficient for birthdays and holidays, who grunts more than he talks. We've never been close, but there's history. We've shared beers, built a fence together. He once helped me change a water heater in the middle of winter without saying more than 10 words the whole time. So when his name popped up on my screen mid-afternoon, I hesitated, then picked up. "Hey, everything all right?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't bother with small talk. "Is she okay?" That stopped me. "What do you mean?" "She called me from Vegas last weekend. Crying. Said something about how she didn't know who she was anymore. Then hung up." I said nothing. "Did something happen?" he asked. It took me a second to realize he didn't know. He'd assumed I was in the loop. That we were handling it, together, as a couple. That whatever midlife spiral his daughter was in, I was still the solid one beside her. He had no idea she got married. Again, I nearly told him right then. My mouth opened, the words at the edge of my throat. But I paused. "Not yet." "She's fine," I said. "Just tired. I'll talk to her." He grunted, unconvinced. "You sure?" "Yeah, we're good." I hung up, hands trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of holding the truth hostage. Her father would find out. Everyone would. But not yet. Not until I was ready to light the fuse. Our daughter, Ava, had just turned 22. She was back home for a few weeks after graduating college. Half in the house. Bags filled with half-read books, iced coffee cups forgotten on windowsills, laundry that smelled like lilac and the world outside. She had no idea. She loved her mother. They'd always been close, closer than I ever was with my own parents. They'd do brunches, weekend hikes, laugh at jokes I didn't always understand. She was her mom's girl, through and through. And now? Now I was sitting on her bed, holding a truth so jagged I didn't know how to pass it to her without cutting us both open. She came in as I was staring at the wall, not realizing how long I'd been sitting there. "Hey, Dad," she said, surprised. "You okay?" I looked up, tried to mask the storm behind my eyes. "Just thinking." She sat beside me, folded her legs underneath her like she was 8 years old again. "Everything cool with you and Mom?" "She's been weird lately." I almost said it then. Almost unzipped the moment and let the world pour in. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I asked, "What do you think love means?" She raised an eyebrow. "You all right?" "I'm serious," I said, trying not to sound desperate. "What does love mean to you?" She shrugged, thoughtful. "I think it means not leaving. Not lying. It's the day in, day out kind of stuff. The boring loyalty. Showing up even when you don't want to." I swallowed hard. She smiled. "Why? You writing poetry now, or something?" I smiled back, but only with my mouth. "Something like that." She kissed me on the cheek and left, her laughter trailing down the hall. And I sat there, alone again, with her words echoing in my chest like bells. Not leaving. Not lying. I wondered what it would do to her to know her mother had done both. It was a Tuesday when I began clearing her space. Not just her clothes, not just the obvious stuff, but the subtle fingerprints of her life that had settled into the bones of our home. The way she folded dish towels. Her post-it notes on the fridge reminding herself to call her sister. The perfume bottle left uncapped on the bathroom sink. I cataloged each object like I was erasing a crime scene. Not violently. Not with spite. Just gone. Her desk in the corner of the den. The place she did bills and Zoom meetings and planned holidays. Empty now. Chair pushed in. Drawers wiped. I boxed her files, neatly labeled them, and stacked them beside the door. Her side of the closet? Bare hangers. The faint outline of where her shoes used to be. I didn't leave a note. I didn't touch her phone. I didn't change the locks. That would have been too loud. Instead, I gave her what she wanted: space, freedom, autonomy, a life unburdened by me. And when she came home that night, one shoe in hand, scrolling through her phone, mumbling something about traffic, it took her a full minute before she noticed. The closet, the office, the shift. "Where's my stuff?" she asked, eyes narrowing. I didn't look up from my book. I moved it. "It's in the guest room." "Why?" she said. And that was the moment. That moment. I knew she hadn't expected consequences. She had expected to straddle two lives, to keep the illusion intact, to juggle betrayal with normalcy. Because liars rarely plan for what happens when they're believed. I set the book down gently. "You said you needed room." I made room. No yelling. No accusations. Just the sound of reality brushing against her like cold wind through a cracked window. She stood there, stunned. And I went back to reading. The next morning, she tried to pretend nothing had changed. She made coffee, toasted bread, hummed while slicing strawberries. But her hands were shaking. I saw it when she reached for the butter knife. The slightest tremor, like the body giving away what the mouth won't say. I sat across from her at the table, not speaking. She finally broke the silence. "Is something wrong?" I met her eyes. Calmly. "You tell me." That's when I saw the flicker. The panic, buried just beneath her calm exterior. Her mask cracked, just enough. She knew something. She didn't know how much. She cleared her throat. "Did I do something to upset you?" I almost laughed. I wanted to say, "You married another man." I wanted to say, "I found the chapel receipt, the photograph, the marriage certificate tucked under the receipts from that seafood dinner where you toasted him while I was here, reheating leftovers." But I didn't. Not yet. I just sipped my coffee and said, "People show you who they are. Eventually." She stared, processing, then blinked quickly, tears forming. "Are you mad at me? What did I do?" Her voice cracked on the last word. What did she do? She fractured 25 years. She burned the scaffolding we built around trust, around our daughter, around quiet weekday dinners and anniversary getaways and boring Saturday errands. She didn't just cheat. She abandoned the idea of us. Quietly. With paperwork. And now she wanted me to comfort her through the fallout? I stood up, slowly. "You'll figure it out." Then I walked away, letting the silence carry the truth like a funeral procession. She didn't follow me. That night, I laid everything out, on the dining room table where we used to host Thanksgiving. No drama. No spectacle. Just the truth, printed on cream cardstock and stacked in a quiet, damning pile. The chapel receipt. The Airbnb confirmation. The glossy wedding photo. And at the top, the marriage certificate. It was all there, clinical and irrefutable. I'd made copies, of course. Originals stayed locked in a folder in the safe. But I needed her to see it. Not just to know I knew, but to know I saw her. She came home late. Said she went for a drive. Her eyes were puffy. She looked tired. And then she saw the table. Stopped cold. She didn't speak. Just stood there, eyes moving from one piece of evidence to the next, her mouth parting slightly like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find a single word to start. I didn't speak either. I didn't need to. She picked up the marriage certificate like it might be in another language. Like if she stared long enough, it would become someone else's name on the line beside hers. Her lips moved. She whispered something. A prayer? A lie? Finally, "It's not what it looks like." The sentence landed like a punchline in a bad joke. It would have been funny if it weren't so devastating. I didn't answer. She tried again. "Daniel, it was a mistake. I was drunk. I didn't know it would be legal." That made me look at her. "You planned an Airbnb. You booked a chapel. You posed for pictures." Her voice wavered. "I didn't know how to tell you." I nodded, as if that explained everything. She stepped closer. "Please, can we just talk about this?" "We are," I said quietly. "I'm listening." Her hands were shaking now. I was confused. "You were married." Silence again. Not the heavy silence of guilt. The collapsing silence of someone who just realized their parachute never opened. She was gone when I woke up. Not gone. Just out. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and the guest room where I'd moved her things was half emptied. The duffel bag she never uses unless it's for more than a night was missing. No note. No text. Just a house that felt quieter than usual, like even the walls were holding their breath. I stood in the living room for a while, staring at the space she'd carved into this home for decades. The little catch-all tray where she kept her keys and spare change. The nail polish bottle that never made it back to the bathroom. Her scarf still slung over the armchair like she might just pop back in and throw it on again. I opened the windows, let in the cold air. It stung my face a little, and I welcomed it. Then I called her father. "Hey," I said. "You got time to come by today?" He paused. "Everything all right?" "No," I said. "But I think you need to see something." He didn't ask more. Just said, "All right. Be there soon." 2 hours later, he was at my door. Worn boots, flannel shirt, same no-nonsense expression I've seen 100 times over the years. "Come in," I said. He followed me into the kitchen. I'd cleared the table. No clutter. Just one manila envelope in the center. I slid it across to him. He opened it, eyes narrowing as he pulled out the certificate. His lips moved slightly as he read it. Then the photo. Then the receipts. Finally, he looked at me. "What the hell is this?" "It's your daughter," I said. "She went to Vegas to marry another man." He blinked. Like his brain couldn't quite file the information. "She? What? You're sure?" I didn't answer. Just tapped the photo again. "That's her. That's him. And that's the chapel. There's a certificate with their names on it. It's legal." He rubbed the bridge of his nose and muttered, "Jesus Christ. I didn't bring you here to fix it," I said. "Just thought you deserved to know before she tries to twist it." He was quiet for a long moment, then muttered, "I'll talk to her." I shook my head. "Just be prepared to get half the story, if that. She's been living in fragments." He didn't respond, just stared down at the table. We sat there, both of us steeped in a silence that was more exhausted than angry. Two men who never expected to share this particular kind of grief. I told myself I'd wait, that I wouldn't involve Ava until I had a plan, until I could present the wreckage in a way that wouldn't collapse her, or me, or whatever was left of the foundation we built this house on. But daughters have a way of sensing things. She came home earlier than usual that night, keys jingling in her hand, calling out, "Hey, I picked up Thai. Extra curry because I know you always steal mine." I was in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water I didn't want. She walked in, set the bag on the counter, and looked at me. Something must have shown on my face. Whatever had been breaking slowly inside me must have finally surfaced. "Dad," she asked, "what's going on?" I stared at her for a second, then said, "Sit down." She blinked. "You're scaring me." "I know." She sat, slowly, her smile gone now. She watched me like she was bracing for impact. I took the envelope from the drawer and placed it on the table. "What's that?" she asked. "It's your mother's second marriage certificate." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Not a sound. She looked at me like I'd just told her the son wasn't real. I slid the photo out next. The one from the chapel. Her mom laughing in a white dress, holding another man's hand like she was on a movie set. Ava stared at it. Her hands went limp in her lap. "No," she whispered. "She did it in Vegas," I said. "Last weekend. Said it was a conference." Her breathing changed. I could see her trying to regulate it, like she was drowning and didn't want me to see her panic. "Why?" she finally managed. I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. "I don't know. I don't even think she knows." She didn't cry. Not at first. She just stared at the photo like it might change if she looked hard enough. Like maybe her eyes were lying to her. Then, in a small voice, she always told me that love meant loyalty. That it meant showing up. What the hell was she even teaching me? I reached across the table and touched her hand. "We don't get to choose what people turn into," I said. "But we do get to choose who we become because of it." And that's when she broke. And I held her, my daughter, my anchor, and we sat in the stillness of a house that had finally stopped pretending. She came back late. I heard the tires on the gravel, the slow shuffle of her footsteps up the walk. The door opened and shut like it always had, softly, carefully, like she thought that alone might undo everything. I didn't say anything when she came in, just sat there on the couch, the lights low, TV off, hands folded like I was waiting for a storm to pass that already wrecked the house. She stepped into the living room, looked around, eyes scanning the space like it might tell her how bad it was. "You talked to my dad," she said flatly. I nodded. "And Ava?" Another nod. She sank into the armchair across from me, the one she always said hurt her back. "I didn't want it to go this way," she whispered. I turned to her. Calm. Empty. What way did you want it to go? She looked down, twisted her wedding ring, the one that now meant nothing, that had no right being on her hand. I didn't think I'd go through with it, she said. But you did. She nodded. Her voice cracked. I don't even know why. Yeah, I said. You do? You just don't like the reason. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. You don't get it. I felt like I was disappearing here. Like I was just a mother and a wife and nothing else. So you erased yourself from our life? Her breath hitched. I wanted something that felt new. I didn't mean to fall into it. You didn't fall, I said. You booked a flight, made a reservation, picked out a dress, wrote vows, apparently. She winced. I never thought you'd find out. That's the part that hurts the most. She wiped at her eyes. I was going to tell you. No, I said. You were going to lie until you couldn't anymore. Silence. She looked around the room, probably seeing it for the first time in weeks. The picture's still on the wall. Our wedding photo still above the fireplace. I don't even know who I am anymore, she whispered. I stood. You're someone else's wife now. She started crying, but I didn't stay to watch. I walked out, not to punish her, just because I couldn't stand the sound of someone mourning what they'd chosen to kill. The next morning, the kitchen smelled like old coffee and unopened apologies. She didn't sleep in our bed. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. I made toast I didn't eat and stared out the window at the backyard. The same backyard where we planted tulips one spring, when Ava was still in pigtails and everything felt like it was going to last. Now it just looked smaller, like the lie had shrunk everything around it. Around 10 a.m., her father came by again. He didn't knock, just walked in and sat at the kitchen table like he'd done 100 times before. Only this time his eyes didn't meet mine for a while. I talked to her, he said, voice low. Yeah. He sighed. She's a mess. But you know that. I nodded. I know. He hesitated. She said it didn't mean anything, that she was just lost. I gave a bitter little smile. Amazing how many people get lost in Las Vegas and accidentally sign a marriage license. He didn't defend her. That's something I'll always respect about him. He's a man of few words, but he knows a train wreck when he sees one. I asked her if she was in love with the guy, he said. I didn't say anything. She didn't answer. I looked up at him. Does it even matter anymore? He shook his head slowly. Maybe not. We sat in silence again, like we were both listening to some invisible clock tick down the final seconds of a life that didn't fit anymore. He finally stood. Whatever you do next, you let me know if you need anything. I mean that. I nodded. Thank you. Then he was gone, and I was left alone again, in a house that still had her toothbrush in the holder and her coat by the door, like she hadn't broken every rule and rewritten the story without asking who else had to live in it. I didn't pack anything that day. I didn't clean. I didn't write her a letter or rage into a mirror. I just sat in the chair by the window and waited for the light to change. Days passed. She didn't say much after that last night in the living room. She moved through the house like a shadow, quiet, weightless, barely present. We coexisted, but not really. She kept her eyes down. I kept my distance. Ava stayed with her boyfriend. She texted me each night, a check-in that felt more like a lifeline. She didn't ask about her mom. I didn't volunteer. The silence became routine, heavy, but manageable, like learning to breathe through smoke. And then, one evening, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I let it ring twice before answering. I don't know why. A man's voice. Nervous. Are you her husband? He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. I didn't respond. This is Daniel, he said, clearing his throat. We need to talk. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't race. I just leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling like I was watching a crack spread across it. I shouldn't have done it, he continued. I didn't know the full story. She told me you were separated, that she was leaving. I wouldn't have. You married a married woman, Daniel, I said, my voice flat. I didn't. Look, I didn't even know it went through until afterward. She said it was just for fun, a symbolic thing. Symbolic. She said she felt dead inside, that she needed to feel alive. I didn't think. I cut him off. Are you calling to apologize? I guess I just wanted to explain. I let that sit. Do you love her? I asked. Silence. Did you think this was real? That she'd burn it all down for you? More silence. I didn't plan for any of this, he finally said. Neither did I. And then I hung up. No shouting. No threats. I didn't need to tell him what he'd ruined. He'd heard it in my silence. And I sat there again, in the same chair, in the same house, wondering how long it would take before the things she broke stopped echoing in every room. She tried again that weekend. We were alone in the kitchen. She was washing dishes like it meant something, like the soap and the steam might somehow scrub away what she'd done. I sat at the table with a glass of water, not watching her, just listening to the clink of plates like some sad symphony of routine. "I need you to know," she said, her back still to me. It wasn't real. The wedding. It was stupid and impulsive and meaningless. I stayed quiet. She turned around, drawing her hands slowly, her face pale. She wasn't wearing her ring anymore. That felt almost comical now. Can we talk about this?" she asked. I finally looked at her. "Which part? The lie? The marriage? Or the fact that you were going to pretend nothing happened until I found proof?" She flinched. "I didn't know how to tell you. You had 1,000 chances." "I was scared," she said softly. I nodded. "Of what? Me? The truth? Or just not being the victim anymore?" That stung. She didn't say anything. "You spent a weekend promising yourself to another man, and then came home and kissed me goodnight. That's not fear. That's cruelty." She sat down across from me. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. "I miss you," she whispered. I almost laughed. "You miss the version of me who didn't know." She bit her lip. "What happens now?" "You don't get to ask that," I said. "You made your choice. I'm just living with it." "Do you want a divorce?" I stood slowly. "We're already divorced in everything but paperwork." She looked down. "I still love you." I said nothing. I just left the room, letting her sit there in the quiet she created. There was no dramatic door slam, no shouting down the hall. Just the dull weight of a goodbye that had already happened, long before either of us had the courage to admit it. Monday morning, I called my lawyer. The conversation was short, clinical. There wasn't much to discuss. No battles over money. The house would be sold. Ava was grown. The mess was emotional, not legal. But the finality of the call hit me harder than I expected. After I hung up, I just sat there in the driveway, engine still running, hands on the wheel. Like I didn't trust myself to go back inside. When I finally did, the house felt hollow again. She was still there, somewhere down the hall, pretending to be busy. Folding things. Sorting books she hadn't touched in years. Like performing normalcy could somehow undo everything. I walked past her, straight to the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out a suitcase. "What are you doing?" she asked from the doorway. "I'm moving out," I said without looking up. She stepped into the room. "Why you? This is your house too." I zipped the suitcase. "Because I want out. And I don't want to keep walking past you every morning pretending this didn't happen." Tears welled in her eyes. "But you didn't even try." "I tried for 25 years. She staggered a little at that. I walked past her with the suitcase. Down the hall. Through the living room. Out the front door. She didn't follow me. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to say. Maybe she was just relieved I made the decision for both of us. I didn't go far, just a short-term rental across town. But that night, sleeping in a stranger's bed, in a place with no memories of her, I breathed for the first time in what felt like months. It wasn't peace yet, but it was silence without guilt. That's something. She called me on a Thursday evening, a week after I'd left. I saw her name on the screen and let it ring twice before answering. "Hey," I said, flat but not unkind. "Hi," she replied. Her voice was small. "Hello. I'm sorry to call. I didn't know who else to talk to." I didn't say anything. "It's quiet here without you," she continued. Ava stopped coming around. "My dad barely answers." I leaned back in the chair, stared at the wall. "You set the fire. Now you're shocked there's smoke?" She exhaled sharply. I know I don't have the right to say anything." "Then why are you?" A pause. "Because I still love you," she said. "Because I hate how things ended." I nearly laughed. "Things didn't end. You ended them. At an altar. In another city. With another man." I was lost. "No," I said. "You were found. Just not by me." There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing. "I never thought you'd actually leave," she said quietly. "I didn't leave," I told her. "You did. Long before I ever packed a bag." She sniffled. "I wish I could take it back." I closed my eyes. "You can't. That's the thing about vows. You don't get to erase them just because you're bored or lonely." "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" That caught me. I didn't answer right away. I thought about Ava, about the weight of truth, about the damage you can't always see but always carry. I might," I said finally. But not for you. For me. Another pause. Then she said, goodbye. Goodbye. I hung up. And for the first time, it felt like a real ending. Ava came by the rental one Sunday afternoon. No warning. Just a knock and her voice calling, Dad? I opened the door, and there she was, coffee in one hand, a stack of mail in the other. Her eyes scanned the place, noting the mismatched furniture, the half-unpacked boxes, the unfamiliarity of it all. This where you live now? She asked, stepping in. For now, I said. Come in. She sat on the couch, crossed her legs, looked around like she was trying to memorize it all. I knew she was checking on me without saying it. I stopped by the house last week, she said. She was there? Looked like a ghost. I said nothing. She asked if I hate her. And what did you say? Ava shrugged. That I don't know yet. I sat down beside her. That's fair. She sipped her coffee, stared at the ceiling. You know what sucks? She was my blueprint. My idea of what a woman should be. Strong. Funny. Loyal. She always said, if you have love, you have everything. I smiled, a sad, worn-out kind of smile. Turns out, sometimes people just say things they wish were true. She nodded. Are you okay? No, I said. But I'm getting there. She reached for my hand and squeezed it. I'm proud of you, Dad, for how you handled all of this. I didn't deserve pride. I just wanted to survive. We sat there for a while, watching the late lights stretch across the floor. No rush to speak. No pressure to explain. Just two people learning to rebuild something from what didn't completely shatter. I went back to the house one last time. It wasn't mine anymore, not really. She was still living there, waiting for the paperwork to finalize, going through the motions of a life she had already walked out on long before Vegas. I needed to grab a few last things. Some tools. A box of old photos I didn't want to leave behind. When I stepped inside, the house felt hollow in a different way now. Not quiet, just drained. Like even the walls had stopped pretending this was home. She was in the kitchen. She looked up, but didn't speak. I nodded, walked past her. No anger. No performance. Just a man collecting pieces of the life he used to live. In the hallway closet, I found one of her sweaters, the soft one she used to wear on movie nights. I held it for a second, just to feel it. Then I placed it back down. In the bedroom, the bed was made. The side I used to sleep on was empty, untouched. She hadn't moved over. Just left the space there like a wound. When I finished, I came back to the kitchen. She hadn't moved. You don't have to hate me, she said quietly. I don't, I replied. But I don't admire you anymore either. She winced, and I regretted it. Not because it wasn't true, because the truth still mattered too much to me. She looked at me like she wanted to say something profound, something healing, but nothing came. I opened the door, and before I stepped out, I said, I hope you find what you're looking for. She nodded, her eyes brimming. You too. Then I left. And I didn't look back. I didn't cry when the divorce finalized. I thought I might. Thought I'd feel something collapse inside me, like the weight of it would finally register in my bones. But instead, I felt clear. Not happy. Not sad. Just done. The papers arrived on a Thursday. I signed them in silence, the pen gliding across the page like it had been waiting all along. That night, I sat on the balcony of my rental with a glass of whiskey and watched the sun bleed out across the horizon. The air was cool. Still, for the first time in months, maybe years, there was nothing pressing down on my chest. She never reached out again after the last time I saw her. Ava talks to her sometimes. Keeps the lines open, but distant. She still hasn't forgiven her. I think maybe she's still deciding whether she wants to. I don't ask. I've started taking long walks. Signed up for a woodworking class at the community center. I have a dog now, a rescue mutt with anxious eyes and a crooked tail. He sits beside me most nights, as quiet as I am. People say freedom comes with fireworks, with big moments of defiance or celebration. But for me, freedom was a quiet morning. No lies in the room. No phone buzzing with secrets. No one making promises they'll forget by nightfall. Just me, breathing. It's strange how peace can feel like grief at first. But it softens. It settles into your skin. She broke something I thought was unbreakable. But I didn't break with it. And maybe that's the only revenge that ever mattered. I'm still here.